We shall have one girl and one boy from each state come and play to the death. You know, like, I bet the most common time for people to be sleeping with their coworkers is around Christmas. It's gotta be. It's like at the office Christmas party. Everyone gets drinking and things lead one thing to another. Ho, ho, ho. Welcome to our Christmas special. Here I am. I've wore my fanciest bells, my pointiest ears, and my most fabulous makeup just for the occasion. This episode, we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about all of the fun festivities, Christmas cookies, elves, elf on the shelf, how tired everyone is at this point. I mean, we're just throwing the elf. I mean, like, where was the elf this morning? On the dryer?
In the dryer, yeah.
Yeah, he's messing around doing laundry or something. We're getting a little tired of the elf. We're going to talk about presents. We're going to talk about celebrations. We're going to talk about shopping, hot cocoa, Christmas movies. What else are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about all of it.
Just the whole Christmas spirit.
Yeah, just the whole Christmas spirit. Do you know one thing we didn't just mention?
What?
Christ.
Right?
Yeah. So, Christmas. What
it's
is
all
it?
about
Okay.
Jesus, isn't it?
Or so they say. The liberals are trying to take Christ out of Christmas. They're now calling it Xmas. Happy holidays. Anything but Christmas. We got to bring it back. Bring back the OG Christmas.
What's the OG Christmas then?
OG Christmas is OG Christmas. But that's what we're going to talk about. Are we really losing the meaning of Christmas? Maybe not. Maybe we're going back to the original celebration of Christmas. Because, okay, listen, we're just going to get into it. Christmas festivities. So I guess this is what it is. The reason for the season, that I don't think we've necessarily been losing. If you're talking about Christmas specifically, yeah, maybe. You have to go back and look at the origins of Christmas. But I think to get to the origins of Christmas, you have to look at the origins of the winter festivities. They might
Winter
not
Olympics, right?
No,
Oh.
not the Patriot Games. What is it? Sorry, it just came in my head. The Patriot Games. We shall have one girl and one boy from each state come and play to the death. Okay, what were you talking about before we brought up the Patriot Games?
Origins of Christmas.
Origins of Christmas. Okay. Origins of Christmas. Let's go back to, historically, there's always been lots of celebrations and festivals around the time of Christmas. So are you asking about, are we losing the meaning and purpose and the good traditions around Christmas? Maybe actually around Christmas, but around the holiday season? Probably not. Because if you go back, let's go back like before Jesus, before there was even a reason for the season. It wasn't even here yet. Rome, ancient, so they had Saturnalia, was like, that's like one of the oldest, there's even other ones, but that's one of the oldest celebration around the holidays, Christmas season, December 25th time frame. But first you have to know like why. I don't know how important this part is. I just like this information. So I'm going to share like very briefly, because I feel like if we go into the full history of Christmas, the holidays, and the holiday winter season, that's really long. I mean, I could talk about it for hours, but we're going to keep it a little simple. And so winter solstice, which is now the December 21st, which is December 21st, I should say. Shortest day of the year. That became historically a very important date celebration because of multiple reasons. Like, it's so, people always think often will think there was some big meaning behind how these things started, but most of the time it was just practicality. And so, we're talking about thousands of years ago. People didn't have particularly easy ways to tell time and dates. Like, if you had money and you could have like these sundials and these things that you could keep up with, I guess you could use like a stick or something for like the time of day, but you're not tracking the moon and the cycles. So people they weren't tracking dates, the common person, very well. Winter solstice was an easy date. It was kind of like the shortest day. It was the shortest day of the year, so it was easy to track time-wise because you kind of knew when it was. It was also the start, like the official start of the winter season. And in most places, that was kind of the start of a difficult time, I guess could be a way to say it, because you, depending where you lived, you had many months of no crops, no food. If you had a bad crop that year, then you were, in bad luck. You most likely didn't have enough food to feed your animals and keep them through the winter. I'm talking about like the common people, not people that were prestigious or had money. And so winter solstice has always historically been kind of a time of celebration because, like always, like let's say I'm going to start a diet. Like I'm going to be on a diet for 4 months. I'm going to do this and this and this. What does everyone do the day before they start their diet? What do you do, Giuseppe? Like if you're going to start a diet, like you're going to eat a bunch, right?
Yeah.
Go to the buffet, go to the Chinese buffet, go eat cookies, go buy cake. You're going to eat everything you can because you're going to be 4 months. Like, okay, it's starting. So honestly, that winter solstice, there were celebrations because it just kind of became, okay, this is about to be a really bad time. Let's celebrate the food that we've had and try to have a little bit of fun before it turns into this dreary, dark, solemn period where many of us are going to die. And so they would, most of the time they weren't going to be able to keep their animals for the whole winter season. So they'd kill the animals and like, well, we might as well have a party. Most of the time, if you had crops in the spring and in the summer that you were making wines and things out of, around that time, they would often be ready to drink. And so you would be like, oh, let's have my first bottle of wine of the season. And so I'm going over this very quickly, but it did turn into this celebration, a really big celebration of let's drink, let's try to get some weight on us, let's eat this extra meat, these cows or goats or whatever, put some weight on us, celebrate, get ready for this hard season we're about to go into. So there's lots of, Yuletide, all these different celebrations around the winter solstice, which is December 21st. Funny enough, I don't know how true this is, but I have read that December 21st actually used to be the day that they chose for Christmas. But then when they changed the calendars for leap year, it got pushed with the change in dates to December 21st. I don't know. My brain, the math might not be mathing on that because I'm like, wouldn't it do the opposite? You were losing days, right?
Maybe.
With the leap years?
With the leap, yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how, but that is something I read, that it used to be December 21st, which was actually, winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the beginning of winter, all these different things. But that with the change of the leap year calendar, when they created that new calendar, it somehow pushed it 4 days. Don't quote me on that. But so that's kind of how there's just historically been these celebrations. Then you kind of move into Romans had Saturnalia, which was the celebration of light, which is kind of funny because you're going into the season of darkness. So I guess they were just trying to celebrate the light itself because it's to the god Saturn. And it was interesting because Rome was very conservative. I'm talking about Saturnalia dates back to 4 or 5 centuries before Jesus was even born, that they were having these celebrations. And then after that as well, I'm I would say 200 AD, like the second century, I guess, the Roman, was it Roman Catholics?
Yeah.
Was it Roman Catholics in the 2nd century?
It must be. I'll look it up.
That were kind of in control of Rome? I don't want to get my... Yeah, see who was in control of Rome in like 200 AD. So I think it was the Roman Catholics that were kind of in control of the country itself. And there was like lots of different rules. You know, they were not allowed to gamble. They were not allowed to drink alcohol. They had all these like very, very strict rules around, you know, controversial moral things. And so then they kind of made this Saturnalia was a time period where everyone was exempt from those rules. So during Saturnalia festivals and celebrations, you could drink alcohol. You could, you know, go find a woman of the night. You could gamble. You could do all these things that otherwise were not acceptable and also not allowed. They were not only allowed, but people kind of accepted like, oh yeah, well, it's Saturnalia. You can do these things. And so it was known to be a very worldly holiday, celebrated kind of, you know, it's not like a proud, you were always doing like bad things kind of during Saturnalia festivals. And so that's kind of been like around that time of year. There's lots of other holidays. Like that's just the most common one and the oldest one that's like was very clear that it's been celebrated for a long time. But then we like get to America and still around that time of the year, there was more drinking than not. There was all of these festivities again, because it was the end of, you know, fall, summer and starting into the winter season. And people like to have these celebrations. They might not have necessarily been celebrating Saturnalia, but they were doing celebrations around that time of year. And Christmas did exist. You know, there was, the interesting thing is, so there's so much controversy around how the date of Christmas was chosen for December, around December 21st, December 25th. And so one that makes a lot of sense to me is that, no, what who was, I think it was the Roman Catholics that chose.
200 AD?
Yeah. What does it say?
Yeah, it's
the Roman emperor, the founder of the Severan dynasty, already proclaimed.
So it's the Romans, yeah. The Catholics, pretty much.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if it was like, if they were that conservative, like they weren't allowed to drink and they weren't allowed to gamble and stuff because of religious things. I don't think it was the Roman Catholics yet at that point. When did Catholics come around?
It's right after Jesus.
Oh, it was? Okay, so it could have been. I get bad with dates, especially when you're going back like 2,000 years. It's like, okay, so Christmas did exist. It's funny how the date, that's what I was talking about. So the date for Christmas, there's so many people that say, well, the date for Christmas was because they wanted to hijack all of these pagan festivals that were around the winter solstice. It was a time of year that people needed something to be encouraged by, and it was also a time of year that people were already used to celebrating. And so it's funny because Christmas, even in different countries where it was starting to become new, they would make some of the traditions around Christmas similar to the ones for like the pagan celebrations around those times, because you couldn't just come into those countries and be like, okay, now we're celebrating Christmas and we're celebrating Jesus. You're not allowed to do these things that you're always have done in the past with your families. And so they kind of like the Christians have always done, I guess, and hijacked it. And so because Saturnalia was originally celebrated, I think it was like December 17th. It wasn't specifically on Christmas Day, what ended up being Christmas Day. But sometimes these celebrations would go, you know, for 3 to 7 days long. And so it does run into that time frame of like the 21st to 25th. And so there's some people saying, okay, so what happened was the only reason they decided on this date of December for Christmas is because, you know, everyone was already used to celebrating around that time and they wanted to change the way people were celebrating. I don't know if that's accurate. I mean, it would make sense it was a convenient time for sure. Whether there was intentions of hijacking the pagan holidays, I don't know. I wouldn't put it past them. But then there's another one because March 21st for Catholics is, what is it called? The holiday on March 25th? Not 21st, 25th. It's like the annotation or something. It's where Gabriel essentially came. They say that's the date that Gabriel came to Mary and let her know that she was with child with Jesus. And so they essentially say like that was the conception of Jesus. And so if you go 9 months from there, you would be landing on December 25th. So that's also a reason. Yeah, I don't even know how to say that word. I've always read it, but March 25th in the Catholic Church is the Annunciation. Oh, never mind. I just never read it out loud. Annunciation. So if you go from March 25th and you're like, okay, that was conception of Jesus because that's when Gabriel, the angel, told Mary she was with child. I don't know how they came up with that date for March 25th, but whatever. You go 9 months from there, you land on December 25th. So that's the day Jesus was born. That's another, in the Roman Catholic contents, that it's the death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus in approximately AD 30. The Catholic Church proclaims itself to be the church that Jesus Christ died for. The church that was established and built by the apostles. Is that the true order? Okay. What, like, you're just showing me.
That was when it was created, the Catholic Church.
Oh, 30. The year that Jesus died?
30, yeah, that's they claim to be the church that originated from.
Okay, so they're claiming that there was Catholics in 30 AD?
No, they claim that the Catholic Church was created right after the death of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's what I mean, in 30 AD.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew, some reason I thought maybe it was like around 100, 150 AD. But I guess that would make sense because I think Catholics claim that they have been around since Jesus. Okay. What was I talking about when you showed me that?
Jews, they had a little hat on the top.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's what it is. I feel like, is it?
Yeah, if you pay attention to it, it's the same thing but different.
Yeah.
You don't see the Pope with the little.
Yeah, he wears his little Pope hat, whatever, whatever that is called. Yeah, so, those are there's more than that, but a couple of possible reasons of how they landed on December 25th for the date of Jesus's birth. I mean, it does make sense if they have March 25th as Annunciation Day, and 9 months from there would be December 25th. So I'm not saying that that's when Jesus was actually born, but I understand how they would come up with the holiday. But also the other one of hijacking the pagan holiday makes a lot of sense, especially if you look back historically and see how the holiday of Christmas was spread globally by the Catholic Church. It definitely seems that it was, and it makes sense. It was convenient. People were already, because celebrations weren't an easy thing back then. People didn't have extra stuff laying around to have an extra celebration. You know what I mean? So they were if you had to have a celebration at a different time from Saturnalia and you had to kill an animal and eat it, they're like, no, we don't have 2 goats extra. We're not going to have a whole nother celebration. And so it does make sense, both of those. But so Saturnalia was just this time of, and most of the pagan winter holidays, even Yuletide, I think, is just historically known for drinking and just living it up, I guess.
What they believe is life, I guess.
So, are we really losing the reason for the season?
Or is it going back?
It's a gamble. We're going out and getting these Black Friday deals. We're drinking alcohol, going to all the office Christmas parties. I bet the most common time for people to be sleeping with their coworkers is around Christmas.
We gotta look that up.
It's gotta be. It's like at the office Christmas party. Everyone gets drinking and things lead one thing to another. People historically have a lot more sex around the holidays. That's why there's I was born in September.
Yeah, December, baby.
September 24th. That was a fun Christmas.
Time of day.
I'm here with my Christmas cookies in a little tin jar.
What are those made?
Have you guys seen the Christmas cookie videos going around about them being made in India? You got to pull this up. Let's pull these up. Listen, so I love Christmas cookies. Oh my gosh. I absolutely love these Christmas. Oh my gosh. Look how good these are. Like, I love all of them. They're all like,
they look beautiful.
They're made exactly the same. Like, the ingredients are the same, yet each of them are so different because it's just different portions, I guess, of the ingredients. I love butter cookies and Christmas cookies, but I'm sure as you have, there's this viral video going around of the Christmas butter cookies that are allegedly being made in India in less than ideal sanitary conditions. So, yes, this is the video. Can we watch this video? Oh my gosh. Okay, so they're like very dirty, made in India, yes. Okay.
Do you know
this
classic tin butter cookies everyone buys
what is
around
this, like a
Christmas?
compilation?
Well, a viral
The
TikTok
Danish,
just revealed
yeah,
that
the Danish
none of
butter
them aren't
cookies.
Danish at all. They
Surprise,
actually
surprise,
made
they're
in
not
India.
made
And
in.
the hygiene
What is this
is
video?
shocked
Okay, yeah, so there's this like. This is. God, I just their feet in it. He's got like no. His pants have a hole in the butt. They're like stomping the batter with their feet. That oil and butter looks like I don't know where it came from. They're barefoot. I mean, okay. Those do look like the Christmas cookies, for sure. And they do say made in India on the back. That is no. That's a Chinese guy. That looks like not the cookie. Okay. So there's obviously some falsity in this because that was a fake video. But I mean, they are made in India and everyone kind of knows like the standards are a little different in India, like the cooking standards. I love to watch street food videos. And like you can tell the difference between like buying some street food in South Korea and buying some street food in India. It's, it's cultural. So
this is slightly different.
It's a little different. I mean, what is this? Is this they're just like, come on, I don't want your sticky little fingers in my food. Oh my God. Look at that. He's just like, he's cleaning off his hands with the food that he's cooking for you. Okay. I don't want to watch this right now. We're talking about Christmas. So I was like, wait, there's no way. Because historically, like, aren't the Danish cookies made somewhere like in Europe? You would think, right?
You would think, yeah. There's Danish cookies.
I went to Walmart to see. So Walmart had 2 sections of cookies. One was $2.48, and they were made in India. Same sizes. Then they had other ones, same sizes, like same ingredients, everything, made in Portugal, and they were $5 a container.
Yes.
That makes no sense.
Why not?
Unless they're stomping it with their feet. You know what I'm saying? Like, how could they, why? They're exactly same quantities, everything. Like, even the little tin containers. Like, see this one with the golden retriever? Like, same exact little containers and everything. But if you look on the back, the $5 ones say made in Portugal, and the $2.48 ones say made in India.
It's labor cost.
I don't know. I'm just saying. Let's see. These are the India ones. Because I was like, you know what? For half the price?
For half the price, right?
Come on. They're exactly the same. A little feedy, but good. I love these cookies. I could eat these all night.
Salty at the
Actually, I'm going to be called racist, but I actually bought the ones from Portugal because I was like, I don't know, dude.
I'm not sure.
Everything's cheap for a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but how did I get off on these cookies, dude? Oh, I saw them sitting here and started eating them. So That's definitely a there's no way that's true moment, because I saw some other ones. I saw some where they were actually completely cooked and they were exactly like the shapes of these and everything, and they were taking them off the pans and just throwing them in piles on the floor. And this is like a bad looking floor, like just gross looking. And they were just stacking piles, like thousands of these cookies into piles, and then people were just grabbing them out of the different piles and putting them into boxes. Everyone was barefoot. I don't understand why, like, do they not have shoes in India? Or is it just cultural? Or what? Like,
It's just cultural.
because like everyone's barefoot in this like factory, or I don't know, somebody's house or what, where they're making these cookies for $2.50. But
Yeah, they usually like to show their toes, so they wear sandals all the time.
yeah, I guess with henna and all.
Yeah.
Because henna, you do a lot on your feet. It's like, yeah, okay. No, I'm going to let's start talking. This is going to go very badly. So yeah, it's like, maybe when people are just drinking for the entire month, they're gambling away their family's savings, maybe their family's house. Maybe the family lose their entire house. They're cheating, just sleeping around. Maybe that's, the true spirit of the holidays. Maybe you're really celebrating the real holiday. The holiday season.
It's a celebration.
It's a celebration. This is also interesting where the 12 days of Christmas came in. There's a lot more detail behind this, but it's not that interesting. But from December 25th to January 6th. Is January 5th or 6th King's Day?
I think it's the 6th.
Well, what's it called in English? We call it King's Day, and because in the Dominican we celebrate, like, you don't get gifts on Christmas Day usually. We get gifts on King's Day, which is January 5th or 6th. I think it's January 6th, right?
I think it's the 6th.
Yeah, I think it's the 6th. And we call it King's Day in the Dominican, but what's the name of it for the Catholics is Epiphany. And it's essentially like, the celebration of the wise men, I guess, bringing gifts type thing. And so, but if you calculate the days between Christmas and King's Day are 12 days. And over time, when the traditions, because it never was historically like Christmas Day, and was not a day that you would have work off. And so culturally it started changing. So people would, have days off around that holiday. Then it kind of got to like, okay, let's have this kind of 2 weeks of Christmas situation where from Christmas Day until King's Day were the 12 days of Christmas. So there actually was kind of like, because I always wondered when I was a kid, the 12 days of Christmas, like, what is it like? There's only one day of Christmas. And then, as I got older and started reading random useless information, realized that that's the 12 days of Christmas. And it was common to celebrate for that period. The whole 12 days was kind of, celebrating the holidays for that. The other thing is, so Christmas itself, like the American version of Christmas, is very new, because even in the 1800s, people weren't really celebrating Christmas, and they weren't celebrating it at all. Like, it looks nothing like the Christmas that we have today. And so I truly believe what it is. The real time that Christmas started being a holiday that everyone was celebrating in like Europe and North America was when Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol. Because he in there included lots of information about the holiday season, like even the fact of eating turkey. He went and got the Crumpet family a big juicy turkey to eat at Christmas. And so then other families, people that were reading the story, it was it just changed drastically the whole idea around Christmas. And it also gave it this narrative of Christmas is a time to be spending with your family. Christmas is a time for the wealthier to be giving, which isn't a new idea. That's not a new idea. But the spending time with your family thing, because even like during Saturnalia and those things, it was interesting because a few different things. One was the poor, the slaves, maybe they were waged but not waged well, they would kind of have this role reversal around Saturnalia, and they would switch with their masters or whoever, their boss, and they would kind of be the ones in charge, and the boss would serve them, or their master would have them at a table for a big feast during that day. And so it had this kind of role reversal. It was very looked forward to by the peasants and the commoners, because it was kind of the day of the year where they're like, oh, we're the ones in charge. And so the idea of the rich kind of taking care of the poor, because that's still the idea now, is give to someone in need around the holiday. You give, it's a giving spirit. You give more than you usually would. And so that idea is not new. That's been since Saturnalia, was they would have these role reversals. And also the gift giving is very, it was definitely changed over time, but the idea of it wasn't a new idea either, because same thing, the peasants and the commoners would go, they had these weird name, they called it like mumming, where they wouldn't speak. They would dress up in these weird like clothing, and they would be drunk, and they would wear masks, and they would be able to go into the rich people's houses, just knock on their door and come into their house and kind of, just be harassing them type thing. And the masters in the house were expected to give them a coin, money, a token, maybe some small gift, something to eat, and then send them on their way. And so that idea of like gift giving, obviously the idea of it changed, but just the giving, especially of like the richer to the poorer, has been around for a long time. But with the Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens really put this idea around Christmas. What was it, 1880, 1885, 1884? When did he write? It was the late 1800s. I wouldn't be able to tell you, I guess, the exact date. But he wrote A Christmas Carol. Had to be the 1880s. And he really...
1883.
1883? Oh, I was close. I said like 84. And so he gave the idea of like really a clear picture of, oh, this is Christmas, or this is the idea of Christmas. This is a celebration of Christmas. And it became just more celebrated regularly. Then it became more common. Wait, we should be able to have the day off on Christmas, because remember, Mr. Crumpet was like asking Scrooge, not Scrooge, what was his name? I can't remember his name. Scrooge. The other, well, his full name, for like to have the day off to spend with his family. And as the employer, he was like, no, I'm not going to do that, even though it's kind of known you should have either these role reversals or let them eat with you type thing, blah, blah, blah. So that gave kind of everyone this idea of, wait, Christmas should be celebrated more, a set celebration. And we're supposed to be thinking about others, and we're supposed to have these meals together. And it kind of gave it an idea of spending time with your family. So that's whenever we start really getting into the idea of Christmas is a time for family. So before 1880, like, that wasn't the idea of Christmas. The idea of Christmas was not this lovey-dovey, wholesome idea of spending time with your family, even though there was the idea of Christmas in the sense of the celebration of Jesus' birth. Then you go forward a little more, and when was Benjamin Franklin president? Yeah, I'm just so bad, like, with dates. They're my worst. Numbers, which I always find funny because I am a bookkeeper. And so Benjamin Franklin, who was pretty conservative, was upset with kind of when was he president? He wasn't president. When was he, he did like Declaration of Independence. Now I'm like one of those people. You know how many times I've said Ben Franklin as president and then say, oh, no, wait, no, he was a founding father. Because he's a founding father, right? I'm not going to ask right. I know he was a founding father. So that had to be in... right around the turn of the century, right?
I'll look it up.
So there was also kind of this movement, which I believe was before Charles Dickens wrote, because it had to be around the turn of the century. Before Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, of, these celebrations around winter solstice were very immoral. They were not wholesome celebrations. People were getting out of hand. There was a lot of crime happening. There was a lot of drinking, a lot of sexual immoral things going on. And so he also wanted to kind of implement this more wholesome idea around that season. But that didn't really, I don't think, take effect completely. But it was, there was this kind of push for making Christmas more wholesome over a period. It wasn't like it just, oh, okay, here's Christmas. Christmas is celebrating Jesus and family spending time together. Everything, it evolved over time. And so there was all these different pushes in Charles Dickens, and then it really started becoming more celebrated. Then in the 1940s, I guess, 1940s or so, America really commercialized and made Christmas a lot more into the Christmas that we recognize today, of, buying presents and singing Christmas carols. That was a lot when the Santa Claus, American version of Santa Claus, the one that we are used to today, came around. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was invented. And there's so many interesting stories around behind all of this of, how the idea of Santa Claus became a thing and how Rudolph became a thing. And they're really funny. It just would take a long time. And so, did you find it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a founding father. He was a diplomat. Yeah, as I say, it was around the late statesman and diplomat. His fame is blah, blah, blah. During the revolutions, yes. So around, almost 1800.
Yeah.
How many times did I say he was president just now?
You 5 times?
5 times. In my defense, it's also 9 o'clock at night, and I'm usually in bed right now. But no, actually, I just do that. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
The other person, I've never done this, but a really common one that people talk about as president is Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
You know how many people I heard say oh yeah, when Thomas Edison, I'm I think they just get confused with Thomas Jefferson and some reason with Thomas Edison. And there's another one. There's also a funny one that people say, a lot of people think that Abraham Lincoln was the first president.
Yeah.
And that's just that's so off. But yeah, I say Benjamin Franklin president a lot, all the time. And then every single time I'm wait, no, he wasn't president. He was a founding father. But I feel that's close enough.
He's close enough.
He was kind of one of the first presidents.
Yeah.
In a weird way. But yeah, the Abraham Lincoln one it always is funny too. It's so funny how there's those common ones that are so consistent over time of people confusing them. But then so 1940s, it really, they started getting these Christmas songs. And this is also funny. I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago. That song that says, in the new old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And I was I never really thought much about that song. It was just kind of fun and had a good rhythm to it. But I think it's really talking about the fact of the idea of our current Christmas, because Christmas in general, the idea, but definitely in America, is a very wholesome time of year. It's a time of year you're supposed to spend with your family. You're supposed to be grateful. You're supposed to give to the people around you, people less fortunate than you. And those are definitely could be considered old-fashioned traditions or ideas or beliefs. And so I think that song was talking about this new idea of Christmas. It's an old-fashioned idea, but it was a new idea because Christmas wasn't celebrated like this historically. And then, of course, holiday season was not at all either. And I see definitely more acceptable in the Dominican, for example. The whole month of December, Giuseppe, what is everyone doing?
partying
nonstop the whole month. You do have a couple of days like Christmas Eve, which we call Noche Buena, is a huge, like the biggest feast of the year is Noche Buena.
Yeah.
And so you have the big feast, but there's not really gift giving that, culturally, you don't really give gifts on Christmas. You're not spending, I don't know. It could be my opinion. You tell me what you think also. It's not necessarily like this wholesome family holiday.
December there?
Yeah.
Not that much. People just drink a bunch.
It's like drinking and partying. But that's very different than, even Americans that aren't Christian per se, they see Christmas as a wholesome time of year. I'm supposed to be with my family. We're supposed to be, sharing gifts with the people that we care about. So, I guess you could say that they've taken Christ out of Christmas, and in the American sense, in the Christian sense, that people aren't celebrating Christmas in the traditional sense of Christmas itself. I don't know, because it's not even that old.
It's not even that old.
It's not even that old.
But what is it? What it was expected?
What it was expected to be since the late 1800s, early 1900s. Not that long. So, I don't know. I don't think that they're taking Christ out of Christmas. I think maybe that's how it's always been.
They are, in the sense of that was the new Christmas.
Yep. That's what I mean. Like, how far back are we supposed to go on any of these things?
It's like back then, for example, they were saying they're putting Jesus in Christmas.
Yeah, probably. They were like, they're probably taking away the one fun time of year that we get to get drunk, go have sex with whoever we want, go to all the rich people's houses and take their food and clothes, and they're trying to make it about Jesus. This is horrible. And so now, 200 years later, well, that's way more than 200 years later since they were doing all that. But yeah, 200 years later, because so this is another thing. It was really interesting. I let me think of. So back in the late 1700s, when Benjamin Franklin was trying to implement this idea of like, hey, we have to become a little moral because it's getting out of hand, the average male American was drinking on a weekly basis around a quart of alcohol.
You got to stay warm somehow back then.
Yeah, but that's great. That's out of control. It is true. Like, if that statistic is true, I don't know how much a quart is, but I don't think I drink a quart in a year.
Here's the thing. There were not that many people back then. It was a bunch of dudes that came.
Wait, are you just making stuff up right now, or is this like actual helpful information?
Actually,
okay. It's not that factual. I didn't think so. You said there's just a bunch of dudes, and what were the dudes doing?
They couldn't warm up, so they started drinking. That's why, it's not a lot of people.
I don't know. Maybe they could like be at home in bed with their wives. And their families.
You had to go.
So that's the whole point. That's why they were like, we kind of have to change this idea. But no, I do agree that I think the idea of having Christmas as a holiday is a very wholesome time of year, a time of year to reflect on, being grateful for what you have, being with your family, appreciating, taking kind of a little bit of break of the busyness of life, which is very important. And that's another big part of lower income people. We're having such a hard time just not getting depressed with just working nonstop, not having anything to show for it. They had to implement some type of incentive, celebration, something, and that helped. That works. Even nowadays, like the most time of the year that we have the most days off is Christmas and the holidays, because you have a lot of days that you don't work. I mean, I'm not a great example. Like, I work on Christmas Eve on pretty much every year.
Yeah.
But we don't work on Christmas, and we definitely have other days around the holidays. And if we're going to take a vacation or trip, we usually will do it around the holidays. And that's definitely something to look forward to. It gives us a break. And so I think it's and I think it's also a good thing to have it around the celebration of something good, the birth of Jesus, and to celebrate that. So I do agree in the sense of Christmas itself, what the actual holiday is celebrating, even though the traditions have changed over time. The holiday itself, since Christmas itself was invented, has always been in celebration of the birth of Jesus. What?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is Santa in all of this?
Where's Santa?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. That would take hours. Okay. Okay, so
Convince.
New York, which used to be called, what was it? New Amsterdam, which is what New York used to be before they changed it to New York, was New Amsterdam. And so New Amsterdam, when it was kind of first created, they were trying to come up with their own traditions, which is important. And so there's kind of this common it was different than Santa Claus, but there was what was like St. Claus or something, which also could have been based off of Saint Nick, which was the patron of travel, which kind of originated in Turkey, kind of this guy that would go around and give you good things certain times of the year. But it's a really funny story. It sounds almost not true, is that the government officials, whatever they were called for New Amsterdam, which has a lot of, history with Denmark, who already had this kind of St. Nicholas celebration that they were doing, or character. He was like one of the guys, I can't remember his name. Oh, geez. It wasn't the Rockefellers. Let me see. I'm so sorry to pull this up, but it's going to bother me. Who invented Santa Claus in New Amsterdam? Okay, so Washington Irving. I couldn't remember the name. Washington Irving came up with this idea, and he's like, okay, well, what about like this Saint Nick character, Santa Claus, and he was joking, actually. He's like, he flies around in a sleigh and he brings presents to everyone on the eve of Christmas, and he's fat and wears a big red suit, and everyone kind of laughed about it. And then some other people said, well, this actually might not be a bad idea. In 1808, popularized the name Santa Claus. He added imaginative details that didn't exist in the original Dutch tradition. Yeah, so everything I'm saying right now. So were you listening to what I was saying? Oh. So they had this, he took it from Dutch traditions. He kind of made a joke around it, and then it stuck, actually. So it's a funny story, but it sounds kind of crazy to be true. That's how Santa Claus, the idea of that came around. The idea of like stockings and goodies and treats around the holidays has been around for a very long time. It was a time of the year for reflection, and so people would often say, have you been good this time of year, or have you been bad? If you were good, you would get a little treat. Often it'd be something like cookies or fruit. Sometimes it would even be you could take a treat off the Christmas tree. And so, because Christmas trees were often decorated with little treats on them, like chocolate and cookies and popcorn and different things. And so you could take a little treat off the tree, or your parents would give you a little treat. And if you had been bad, the whole idea, I think, is very American. Actually, what would happen if you were bad was Santa Claus would leave whips for your parents to whip you with. So there was kids now, I've never given my kid coal, but I've thought about it sometimes, and that would be considered abusive. I can't believe you gave your kid coal on Christmas. That's so heartless. But the original Santa was leaving the parents whips to whip the children. So, maybe I'm actually being pretty liberal by giving my children coal. Very kind. Taking it easy. So the idea of Santa, there was in Denmark, and it was a very similar name, like St. Claus or something, and there was Saint Nick, and so but the red, jolly, fat version that flew around. And reindeers didn't actually come in until in the 1900s. There was like Rudolph and these other reindeers that came into play. That wasn't even an idea. He just flew around at Christmas. Like he flew, and they thought it was funny and it stuck, which is really because they were trying to come up with like, we need traditions for New Amsterdam that are like our traditions. So that's how Santa Claus came in. And that's why I said there's so much history around Christmas. There's so much around how, just like in any tradition, it didn't just, I mean, I guess like that Santa one kind of just popped up, but not really. It was originated from the idea of Saint Nick or, what was the Denmark version of Santa Claus? Is it St. Claus? St. Claus or something funny like that? So I was saying earlier that I do, for the actual Christmas itself, I would say that, you're right. They are taking the reason for the season out in the sense of this Christmas is and always has been a celebration of the birth of Jesus. Sinterklaas, who's Saint Nicholas, which is he actually originated in Turkey.
Even deeper than that.
Yeah, so Saint Nick, so that's why I say like it's just a long history of it. So I do believe that they're taking now, it is definitely in America not celebrated as the birth of Jesus. It's become very commercialized, I think, in a bad way, in the sense of it's all material. It's not even so much anymore, in my opinion, of giving to those who need. It's very much turned into oh my gosh, it's Black Friday, let me buy so much stuff more than me or my children or my family members would ever need. And there's a lot more depression, I think, around the holidays than there has been historically. There's also a lot of other things, like historically Christmas time and winter solstice has been a time of ghost stories. There was, this idea that on Christmas Eve, your family member's ghost would have the chance to come back and ask for the specific prayers that they would want for the year, and they would be able to come back to their families. So it wasn't, this idea of Christmas always being this jolly time of year is also not true. So it's hard. I don't think it's good to just get drunk and gamble and do bad things around the holidays, but I don't think it's necessarily something new. I think that's what this time of year had been before Christmas was here. But yeah, I think Christmas, when people say that it's just not being celebrated for the reasons it should be, I think that's a fair statement if you're talking about Christmas specifically, because just in the past couple of weeks have asked multiple kids, not my own, what do we celebrate around Christmas? And I get the same answer from all of them, which some of them are, I think that they're good answers, is it's to spend time with family, but mostly I've gotten, you get a lot of presents. And that is sad. Like, shame on everyone, whether you're Christian or not and you celebrate Christmas as Jesus or you celebrate something else. Like, don't be allowing your children to believe that Christmas is just a time that you get stuff. If anything, like maybe it's a time that you give. You could teach them that, it's a time that you give to others. Or like I said, some of the kids that have responded and told me it's a time to spend with your family. And I think it's definitely a good time to reflect on the year. New Year's, obviously, which is very close to Christmas, but New Year's obviously is even more so a good time to reflect on that. Okay, let's read this. The person you are asking about, Sinterklaas, has a very distinct and traditional...
That's what he looked like before. That was the original Santa.
Well, also, it was very common for him to wear green or purple.
Oh.
Yeah. So Sinterklaas, it was not... Or brown. There was many colors that Sinterklaas could wear, not just red.
Looks like a pope.
Yeah, well, he's a patron saint. Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
Is kind of, who that was. And the gift giving is so funny because Saint Nick himself, I don't believe, really gave gifts. What happened was there was these it was something he did. What? Oh, he did something like, okay, so there was these women, he had went to this country. The story goes that he had went to this country and there was many women who were poor and didn't have the money to afford a dowry. And so they weren't able to get married. And that was very difficult because if you weren't able to get married during that time, you had much lower chance of survival because you didn't have someone to take care of you, to feed you, to protect you, give you a place to live. And so Saint Nick actually funded dowries for many of those women. And later on, there was a group of, I don't think they were called nuns then, but they were nuns that started collecting gifts around Christmas and leaving them for poor children and saying they were from the patron Saint Nick.
Yeah.
So that's also kind of where some of the origins of Santa Claus bringing presents to the children came from. And it's also, I think, interesting, it's not exactly clear that it's because of this, but the fact that back during Saturnalia, the role reversals of the time of year of Christmas being about the ones that weren't in control and the poorer ones being the masters during that time. I mean, who during Christmas now, it's very similar. It's like, it's all about the kids. Christmas is all surrounded by like what the kids want for Christmas, and they want presents and they want this, and they kind of control the whole narrative. So that's not necessarily a new thing either. I know it's not exactly the same, but it kind of is interesting. So yeah, so Saint Nick had, that's how that he himself, I don't think ever actually was like giving. When I was growing up, I kind of thought, Santa Claus was based off Saint Nick because Saint Nick used to go and give gifts to poor kids. But I don't think he actually ever was giving gifts to poor kids. It was the nuns that were, because it was much after Saint Nick's time that they started doing this, was they would leave it for the children and then say, oh, this came from Saint Nick. Yeah. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, so if you ask if Christmas is a pagan holiday, a lot of the traditions are pagan for sure. I mean, the Christmas trees are pagan. A lot of even the gift giving, all these, they weren't like based around, because then, I guess also the Catholic Church says, oh, well, we give gifts because like Jesus was brought gifts on his birth day from the wise men that came. So it's interesting. It's hard. Which one is true? It's hard to know because they both make sense. It makes sense that, yeah, okay, the Catholic Church would say, well, they brought gifts to Jesus. Let's give gifts to other people to, show that. But then also at the same time, it's like, well, no, there was all these things that happened over time that kind of created this tradition of giving gifts. Maybe it was both. So, yeah, I mean, let's go out. Let's have some drinks, spend some time with the family, get some gifts and give some gifts. I guess we can kind of mix it all together. But hopefully this episode, there's so much more about Christmas. Like I don't know why I know so much of the history of Christmas, but this is the one opportunity I have to share some of it. So hopefully you learned a couple new interesting things, and next year I guess I can get into more of the other parts I didn't. And I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and Yuletide and Saturnalia and all the other festivities happening around the winter solstice. So, see you next time. Merry Christmas.
In the sunlit cafe where the chatter hums